Hello, welcome to the Wonkat Almost Live uh, Mother's Day extravaganza. I was scheduled to do a lot of weekend activities, and now it's about expected to be 90 degrees. So I hope to survive all of them. Robin, it's very warm where you are, you were telling me,
It
right?
is. I'm like hot and smeary is really like how I'm feeling right now. Like,
This is just, for those of you in Oregon or in Portland, that area, the situation here, it doesn't supposed to get this hot until July, and it's not about like
yeah.
convenience or anything. It's just sort of your entire system of agriculture is getting slammed. Like plants are getting slaughtered. It's not good for us to suddenly be Southern California structurally. So, um, but that's a long term thing. For a short term disaster, there was that CNN town hall that I watched. It was awful. I think as everyone had anticipated it would be, and everyone knew it would be. Robin, you wrote Friday about Anderson Cooper's "How Very Dare You" response to people being put out by CNN
Oh,
being a willing instrument of Trump's fascist propaganda. Uh,
he just doesn't want us to be in our bubble, Stephen. You know.
well, and I just
Oh,
keep
yeah.
hearing that, and it's just I remember someone telling me that of like, why don't I watch Fox? Like, you only listen to watch things
Yeah.
you agree with, people you agree with, and but he's there's nothing that's those old lies and propaganda is not compelling to me. I feel like, sometimes, and we're guilty of this, we cover Fox way
I
too much.
barely want to listen to people I do agree with.
Yeah, it's not so much that I don't want to. There are like a lot of people on the left and a lot of centrists and a lot of even conservatives who I enjoy having discussions with. And then there are people who I don't because they're jerks and they don't engage in good faith. And it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. It's just their objective is to just be a jerk. So that's all that's happening with Trump. There's no gain from it.
Yeah.
And it's not even authentic. So it's been revealed that CNN sort of instructed the audience of carefully selected Trump supporters from New Hampshire
Mhm.
to not under any circumstances boo. You're not allowed to boo Trump,
Oh, yeah.
but you
No.
were allowed to applaud. Um, and I think even like, Paul McCartney concert doesn't have those rules. You're allowed to boo a song if you don't
Yeah.
like it or something. But here it's like just very clearly structured to uh to make Trump look good.
hmm
That's all
No,
that's
that was the
occurring.
whole point. The whole point was to make him look good. There was, revealed that there was that discussion earlier where he ran into, is it Licht? Chris Licht? Whatever.
Hmm.
I'm going to say Licht. Probably Light, but I'm going to say Licht. No.
Mhm.
Um, like him saying, this is going to get you some really good ratings, and Chris Licht being like, yeah, I hope so. So
Yeah,
I
that's
don't,
quality journalism there. So with any uh cult leader or even sleazy televangelist, putting them in that scenario, interviewing them does not gain anything because they are master media manipulators.
yeah,
To the extent that we need to understand about people who would boo a former president smearing a woman he sexually abused, the fact that
yeah.
we need to understand them, it is more enlightening to speak with the mob.
hmm
And arguably, like fake news, The Daily Show, for instance, does it a lot, and they collapse because they're sort of pathetic. And so it doesn't
Yeah.
behoove the cult. Like Scientologists don't want you actually interviewing normal run of the mill Scientologists. That doesn't help them. They want,
Yeah.
I don't know, because
They want all
like
the
Tom
celebrities.
Cruise makes it seem
Yeah.
cool. I'd be like, well, maybe I should, like
Oh,
he's
are there any normal run of the mill Scientologists? Like, is that
They're
a
sort
thing?
of the low
Or
rent
doesn't throw
slaves.
them all off the boat? Like, if you're too normal, if you question anything, you're getting thrown off that boat.
They're sort of the low rent slaves who have to sort of
Yeah.
do whatever they're told to do. Um, yeah, so Trump structured it's like not he's not engaged, like the idea that he's being exposed and his lies, all he does is keeps lying,
Mhm.
and you couldn't have structured it better. So his the moderator, Caitlin Collins, is I'll be blunt here, a young, conventionally attractive woman who
Mhm.
he dominates, and his supporters love seeing that. That
Yeah.
reinforces what they want to see. And there was a lot of discussion, and some folks disagreed with this, but there's a lot of discussion that if he were to face Warren, and it happened a bit with obviously Hillary as well,
Yeah.
he would crumble because it's a different dynamic. They're not going to put up with his crap. And they, as she did when she kind of dismantled Bloomberg, it's one thing to be
Yeah.
like, Caitlyn just sort of, Collins just sort of did the whole thing of like, he would lie, and I'm going to mention Angel again, like the person when they meet the guy and it's like, here's all the stuff you're doing, and he's like, I disagree,
Yeah.
and it just sort of kept going on, and so that's sort of what he's just allowed to keep lying, and to
Mhm.
the point where it's a victory where he can make the fact that he incited an attack on Congress an issue of debate, or
Mhm.
that the election was stolen an issue of debate, and be just sort of, I disagree. And then her being, well, they didn't find fraud, as opposed to, there was no fraud. Why do you keep
Yeah.
lying about this? There was no sort of aggressive counter to it. So it's structured to benefit him
Oh,
completely.
absolutely. Anderson Cooper knows that. He's, I don't personally, I have my beef with him, but he's not so stupid that he doesn't know that. He's a smart person. He went to, he's been around for a while. He knows exactly what was happening there. He's not that daft that he really thought like, oh, we're just exposing you to, you know, different viewpoints that other than your own. Because
But it's
look
just
at
absurd. It's, well, I mean, like Kamala, we've discussed that Kamala Harris has sort of some challenges politically, right? But if
mhm,
you were to take, if CNN were to give her, the vice president, a town hall populated by folks from black beauty salons
yeah.
instead of South Carolina and Baltimore, and instruct them not to boo, and have her, be interviewed by, the most ideal interview her for her, someone who's not going to check the challenge or whatever, and then
Mhm,
everyone's going to be like, well, she's the most popular politician in
yeah,
the world, and it's like,
all time.
no one's gonna believe, no one would believe that. Everyone would be like, this is absurd. And I like, it's the sort of thing that if like, you've mentioned this, like if other countries were to do it, so like with King Charles now
Yeah.
has problems, it's like, okay, well, let's have him be interviewed, the audience can't boo, which seems like a very, thing that you might say for the king. Don't boo the king, hear him when he says stuff, uh oh, don't challenge him at any point. It's like, oh, everyone loves the king and a monarchy. So this was just so ridiculous. It was so offensive. He was doing just more
Yeah.
and more of just the smears of E. Jean Carroll, which we'd expected.
Mhm.
Alexandra Ocasio Cortez had rightly said that CNN set, it wasn't just this irresponsibility of airing Trump's lies, but really to
She's
set
she's
her
gonna
up
sue him
to,
now though, so she's like, I got another lawsuit. Hi.
yes, I hope she does, but it's a sort of it's just appalling. um and I don't know, I find it such a low point where they try to make news that's both,
Mhm.
Fox at least is just, look, this is propaganda, and we're out to make Trump look good, and this is what we do.
What was actually funny is that Fox actually ran an article about liberals dragging Anderson Cooper for his for the CNN thing. Like, and it was very funny, honestly. Like,
Yeah, you'd
oh yeah,
reminded me, and
CNN
you're
Anderson Cooper obliterated by liberals over pathetic Trump town hall sermon. How condescending! Like,
yeah,
what planet
yeah.
are we living on right now? I'm not really sure. Like, CNN is hosting Trump time, and Fox is talking about liberals obliterating Anderson Cooper for his terrible,
Mhm.
terrible monologue.
Yeah, you'd reminded me that Anderson Cooper had made some sort of offensive comment about Olive Garden or something of like when trying to
Yeah, like
scare
his
Trump supporters.
mhm. Yeah, no, his big like comment, re like January 6th people taking over, it was like doing a whole ass insurrection, trying to take over Congress, trying to overthrow the government was, oh, now they're all just going to go back home to their Holiday Inn and then eat Olive Garden or something like that. And I'm like,
No, I mean,
all the things that you could say about these people, that's what you go with.
and
We were
he's like
mad about it at the time, you and I, as I recall. I think that we
he's a
had,
Vanderbilt. Like it's not as if it's especially insulting because it's sort of,
yeah. It's
when
like,
I was
we know
growing
who you
up,
are.
when I was growing up, you would mock Arby's and certain motels, but and along the understanding that you went to a lot of fast food, it was just we go to these
Hmm.
places, we know it. This is just a bad version. This is actually bad, and
I will
and
actually defend Arby's chicken tenders. Look, I had to
sure.
do like I worked at the mall for a long time. Okay, I didn't have that many. You know, there were a lot of bad options there. The
Uh,
Arby's chicken fingers were one of the better options. I'm
I
not
grew up
fucking
in
with Sbarro.
I grew up in South Carolina, and there were like the diners there. That one was called Carolina Fine Food, and they had this, so much better quality food than Arby's.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's sort of the media has no preparation for how to manage the situation with Trump, or how to deal with him, or if there's this sense of Republicans keep getting treated as if this, America has two kids and you've got
yeah,
to treat them each equally. You've got to give them the same dollar amount of presents each year, no matter how poorly the other one behaves. So you just can't have a general policy that there's no town hall for known liars or anyone who tries to overthrow the
yeah.
government. Oh, but you can't do that because then you're not having, Republican nominee most
Mhm.
likely, and that would be a bias toward Democrats, even though it's just more the fact that you tried to overthrow the government and you're a known liar. It's not about your specific policies.
Yeah.
Even I would have no problem with a DeSantis town hall, even though Collins would also be terrible. But you know, the evil stuff he's saying is somewhat rooted in fact. He's just coming with evil stuff that he
Is
comes
it
out at it,
though?
but it's not like demonstrably lies. Well, look, the
Mm,
argument is like I don't like
I'm
these
not of
I
the
don't
opinion
like
that
these
DeSantis
people.
is any better than Trump. I really
Yeah.
like.
Well, he is a terrible person in different ways. I think that I would say that he can actually have a town hall because he is not going to repeat these same lies. I think a lot of his stuff is wrong, but that's sort of different. I mean, I think, Anderson Cooper saying that we don't want to engage with people who we believe are wrong, sort of different from someone who is overtly lying. I mean, Trump is just sort of completely disconnected from reality. He wants to benefit from the idea that his point of view is just a wrong one, which is all of his
Mhm.
point of views are wrong, but it's just no, no, no. You actually did try to overturn election. You did try
Mhm.
to do these things, and so he there is no gain to having a discussion with him. And he's also much better at lying, which is sort of the danger. I guess that is sort of the danger there compared to DeSantis. DeSantis does somewhat fold when pushed, and even the mildest pushback that does make him look poorly.
Yeah.
Whereas Trump is a sort of a master BSer that if you put him on air, he's just going to.
It's not even that he's a master BSer. It's that he just like does not accept like that he's wrong or that he said something incorrect. Like or that he said something shitty. He's like, nope, I'm sticking. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, which is very unusual in politics in the United States or anywhere.
Yeah,
People
I
don't
mean,
really agree with that.
people try to when they with Holly and Cruz or Cotton, they try to
Mhm.
twist things to their benefit around a sense of truth that then can be challenged. I mean, Romney has done it. People would accuse Obama or the Clintons of doing it. I mean, that's what politicians to a certain degree do.
Mhm.
Trump just makes stuff up and lies. And again, I want to get away from the actual point of his lying to the point of his actually smearing a woman he was found liable of sexually abusing, and that was the day after the verdict came out. And if anything, they should have postponed or not, knowing he would do this is sort of
Mhm.
um it's just really appalling. So, but that's sort of what they're going with. This is what they're going to do. This is what we
Mhm.
can expect to see for the next year and a half. What do you think is do you think this benefits him or doesn't
It
benefit
obviously
him?
benefits him.
Mm.
It obviously benefits him, like, a lot. The whole thing was like, it was like an infomercial for him. The fact
Yeah.
that CNN let him on in the first place, even if he didn't even do anything, was basically an infomercial for him. Like, that's what they were like, "Oh, look, he's normal now." And that was actually like, much of Anderson Cooper's thing was like, these are normal people. They go to church and love their kids. Um, and it's a can you believe that these completely normal people were cheering for, Donald Trump lying and also him disparaging the woman he was just found guilty of sexually assaulting. Um, like,
Well, there's
uh,
no. I don't know what he means. I mean, obviously he means they're white people. Because if
yeah,
they were black doing something awful, he'd be like, "They're black," and that's all. This is doesn't matter. There's a lot of black people doing bad things. It's just like this is. They can find the morality to say that
yeah.
this is objectively wrong, um, and it is nothing new. I mean, that's the problem with the sort of rejection of history. So no matter how
Mhm.
many times I write it, and people are always shocked, like there were normal people cheering and applauding when pregnant black women were set on fire. Like pregnant black women had been lynched, set on fire, skinned. People were laughing and watching. Children, white women, um, body parts were sold on street. And people are capable of horrific
Yeah.
things. It's been documented. So there's no you there's not like anything that you revealed here. What you've now done is essentially catered to the same sort of mentality of a lynch mob. And
Mhm.
that's what his Trump rallies were and everything. You've now catered to a lynch mob and put it on television, and now you're saying, "Oh, these are normal people." Well, yes, and that goes back to Germany and how like yes, normal people would do awful things, and now you are broadcasting it and creating this sort of loop. So when Hillary Clinton calls them
Mhm.
deplorable, people who do things like that, you can't call them that because um they're normal people or there's too many of them. I think you had noticed this as well. So like the day before election day when everyone thought Trump was going to lose, it was like his supporters and he himself he's racist and his supporters are racist. Like we
Yeah.
all understand that. This is all the things he said is terrible. And then when he did just as well as any other Republican and better enough in key states to win, everything was like, oh well, he is popular enough that we need to pull back.
Yeah.
We can't say this movement is
Well, that's
racist.
even what Cooper was saying. He was like, well, 50% of the country, it's like,
He's never reached 50%
four
support.
to five dentists can't be wrong. Like,
He's never reached 50% support. And it goes back to the idea that a lot of centrists say of how, which is consistently wrong, right? That Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love or something. It's like, well,
mhm.
no, the
That is
consistent
the opposite.
the consistent pattern is
Mhm.
that the candidate who inspires voters, specifically unreliable voters, right?
Mhm.
They bring out the unreliable, inconsistent voters, people they've
Mhm.
inspired, and then the rank and file members of that party, they're the ones who come along, and that's enough to get you
Yeah.
over. So with Obama, and then I think with Trump, and when that doesn't happen, McCain, Romney, Clinton, it is usually because, oh, if I'd gone back, you could see where there's issues with a key part of their coalition that was
Yeah.
evident in the primaries. It's like it wasn't Sarah Palin. I mean, that's sort
Yeah.
of the Anderson Coopers would want us to believe that Sarah Palin is the reason that McCain
Yeah.
lost, as opposed to Sarah Palin being actually relatively popular, but it
Yeah.
wasn't enough. The base
Oh,
still didn't trust
yeah.
him.
No, I would actually argue that Sarah Palin was way more popular than he was,
Mhm. Absolutely. Um,
including among a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters
well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the
at
girl
the
boss,
time.
thing, right? Like it's
Mhm.
a powerful, successful woman. eh,
Hack mom. You don't ever want to see me with glasses and my hair up.
oh,
It's
really?
scary. Yeah, it's actually pretty frightening.
Why is it just?
I look exactly like Sarah Palin.
Ah, well, you should
Like,
do that sometime.
no, no, it's bad. Like, it's actually yeah.
um, a lot of a lot of men were really into Sarah Palin. There were a lot of people around two
Mhm.
thousand eight and 2009 who were kind of pushing for that look amongst women and that found it very attractive. And to
Hollywood
each
was
their
really
own.
easy for me, like for a while during those years, because there was like her and then that Christine O'Donnell witch lady. I was like, perfect. Like, these are my costumes.
Um, I well, speaking of powerful women, I came up a lot with Diane Feinstein again, and how any criticism of her being sexist, even though her, and this is an unfortunate thing that happens a lot. A lot of her senior staff is white men who are kind of
Mhm.
running things.
Yeah.
It often happens. And I'd written about this. She's back. Doesn't looks very in very poor health. And I'd my article had been called, why are we doing this to her? And people were saying it's her choice. We don't know. We haven't heard anything from her. We haven't seen anything from her.
Mhm.
But what's interesting was that there'd be that pushback to the framing of it that way. And then they would say, but we need to wheel her in to vote because of the particular situation they're in. And I'm like, of the judges, that's like, well, and I mentioned this in my article. It's like, I'm kind of uncomfortable if like the the health of the nation relies on wheeling in a bit like, I don't know. Our sense of democracy is really about it is complicated, right? I admit it's complicated. If we're talking about human rights, really, the human beings being represented uh and impacted. So a person who might not entirely be there and in very poor health just being wheeled in to raise their hand.
Yeah.
I don't
No.
know how much of democracy that is. Of course, it's better than I suppose the alternative in that situation is just it's just bad that it got to this point that we, okay, just raise someone's hand, and
Yeah.
even though we just as long as we can get this judge on or whatever, and we know the impact, on real people, so I get that. It's just I'm very uncomfortable with this. It's just not what our democracy should be.
Oh yeah, no. It's not. I just don't think that we should be encouraging people to keep going into work once they have to be wheeled in, like in that kind of way. Um, like, I mean,
Oh, it's horrible.
like,
Yeah.
if they're not like if she's really like in such ill health, that's actually just like a bad, you know, thing to for like it's a bad example to set, I think, for people.
Well, yeah. So we make it triumphant. We make her not wanting to quit. We've again discussed some of this before, but we linking it back to the Olive Garden thing, right? The idea that there's something nobler and there's more
Yeah.
purpose to being a senator than to work at Olive Garden. So the idea of just like, okay, well, don't worry, Stephen and Robin, you're gonna get your unlimited breadsticks a day. We'd otherwise be understaffed, but Diane's going to be coming in today, and then of course Diane's being wheeled in. She has shingles. She's a little under the weather, but she's going to be coming in. She'll take your order. I'd be horrified, right? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, no one should have to work in that condition, but it's
Yeah.
somehow it's different. It's the Senate, and I get it. It's power, right? And that gives somehow meaning to life that a different
Mhm.
job does not, or something. But I don't want to do this when I'm being willed. Like the idea that you are that, because so much is upon you. To me,
Mhm.
it's sort of like, well, there should be a structure where then that power can be relieved. Um, you know, and I get it. They say Republicans wouldn't allow her replacement on a judiciary committee. If that's the extent, knowing that kind of hardball they would play, that falls back to Schumer again by putting someone of such frail health on such a key committee. I mean, actually, there's some other Senate committees she could have been on where she'd have been allowed to recuperate kind of normally. It it's just strange to me when I just see people reacting again, as you say, like the idea of like it's not that we're wheeling someone into work and we're
Yeah.
cheering that, which most of us would not in any other
Situation. Yeah.
in
Oh,
circumstance. Like,
these this is America where people are like, I worked 80 hours this week and did not get paid for it. And people are like, wow, that's what you got to do. So,
no, no, no. Like, look, I mean, if you were at my house, we're having like drinks or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's cleaned up. Fortunately, the cleaning lady were able to come yesterday, because they wheeled in one of their folks, and she was able to make it. She had shingles, she was under the weather, but she was able to clean those windows. You'd be like, what an ass! Why are you
yeah.
forcing? You're a horrible human being, and like, but we all saw this as some sort of traumatic. um and that's sort of the denial over the fact of the health. Like others was just like, I think it was one of the senators. It's like, oh yeah, it was actually Newsom. It's like, she's great. I'm glad she's gonna make a full recovery. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think, what is full? Like, how are you defining this? And that is just, I don't know. Everyone's talking about her finishing out her term, and the idea that there's a very good chance that she might die while in office, like the idea that anyone might die having to do their job, is just depressing to me. But I don't know. People see it differently. People see inspiration and boldness from it. I don't
I mean, I guess you got to get it from somewhere.
know. um so Daniel Penny, the guy who had murdered, well, not yet murdered, but killed
You can't
his
legally
man,
say murdered yet or at all because yeah.
was charged with manslaughter for his perfectly unavoidable killing of a man on the subway. So uh there's he's already being set up for like it's not GoFundMe but Give Send Go
Oh,
or
you
something.
can go. Yeah, that's the one that they invented because GoFundMe kicked off Nazis, and they were like, "Well, we'll have our own for Nazis," and so that's really like where you go if you want to send your money to Nazis, for the most part, or Kyle Rittenhouse.
So they I'm I'm sorry, Robin. So I'm let's walk through this and try not to become physically ill.
Mhm.
So this homeless person who did not have a home because of we do not ensure that every American in the greatest country in the world is housed, um, and who have trouble getting his medication and like all sorts of issues that could have been perhaps solved with any other country giving funds. There are people who are funding the defense of the person who killed him. You know,
And calling the idea of that guy being prosecuted pro crime. They're like they're anti-hero and pro crime. Uh, so like prosecuting crimes if it's a Republican is, or or if it's some, if it's someone who murders a homeless person, that's pro crime. To be clear, um, Jordan Neely was not committing a crime.
yeah,
He
they
did not
refers to
commit a crime.
he's referred to as an assailant
Yeah,
on
he didn't physically assault anyone.
now he was screaming or being unwell, but that is not an actual crime. Apparently so, we'll see. But also, it happened with Rittenhouse and with others. I mean, I've watched enough Law and Order. The state actually they won't give you a house, they won't give you health and care, but the state does provide you with an attorney, not a particularly, not going to guarantee it's a good
Yeah.
one. I mean, that's also I don't know how much of that is propaganda you think where they present all public defenders as being terrible. I think they're usually
They're usually
overworked,
overworked.
certainly,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Also, a lot of the time they're young. So you'll have like people, or like, new to the practice of law. So you'll have like a lot of people with like no actual experience handling death penalty cases and shit. Like, um, one of the things that has been talked about in general is like for more serious cases, there needs to be some sort of like rule about how much experience the lawyer has, needs to have. If you're going to send someone to, to go die, you should perhaps have a more experienced lawyer.
Yes, I was watching an X Files recently, rewatching rather, and one where the person who comes back from the dead to kill
Mhm.
everyone who
Yeah.
put him on the electric chair, and
Oh, yes.
one of them is his defense attorney, and I'm like, well, I
Mhm.
mean, that guy was just incompetent. I mean, kill the evil warden, kill the
Yeah.
guards who were effing you up, sure, but give that guy a break. Just scare him.
Yeah.
Ah, then leave. I'm still mad,
No,
but I'm
public
gonna let
defenders
you
are
live.
amazing. They're just usually overworked, and a lot of the time, people are being assigned cases that they do not have the experience to handle.
But I mean, that is part of. I would say that's a part of propaganda. The idea that,
Mhm.
and not entirely untrue, right? That obviously getting you a lawyer who's not in that system might help you somewhat. But I do think people are inclined to give in the sense that we don't trust. But that's in the case of everything. Like we won't fix the system,
Yeah.
right? So instead of like, okay, oh my God, I feel so bad that this guy might have to rely on the system that exists. So I'm going to now donate so he can actually get a good
Mhm.
lawyer. Why don't we actually now pool our money or take whatever taxes we need to actually ensure that when anyone is charged, they're going to get a good lawyer. But instead, it's like, oh, let's just
Yeah.
selectively, everything sort of has to be selective. Same with like the GoFundMe, oh wow, I happen to notice that my the guy who works at the Waffle House had to walk, 4 miles here and back because he can't afford to fix his car. That's a shame. And there's systems problems with that.
Mhm.
But this specific person I got laid that night when he was working, and I was there, and I'm in such a good mood still from that, that I want to help that one guy. And that's nice. I get it. I've been there. But like you want everyone connected with that
Yeah.
night. I want to help everybody. But it's like that's a system, it's a systemic problem, but we always want to
Mhm.
resolve it because we want to believe that you have to earn humanity. Which I don't know. It doesn't make
Well,
sense
I
to me.
mean, like we've discussed before, people are more comfortable not thinking of unhoused people as humans. Like they prefer that because otherwise it would be really upsetting that people don't have houses. And like that would be a fairly, that's, it would be more intolerable to us if we thought of them as being human beings.
Well, and everything's based on the accept. I've seen this. It's like, okay, well, if we funded and had houses and got people out, and even if you got past the folks who are just assholes, and it's like, well, I pay for my house. I don't want
Mhm.
my tax. Okay, fine. But then you get people who are like, okay, well, what about the people who have either issues with drugs or mental capacity, could never live alone? It's like, well, keep in mind that we do have assisted living
Yeah.
facilities for the elderly in a situation, in the concept that they cannot you know, uh, live independently. But think of how many ish people you would help who just need a home, who are
Yeah.
living. They don't have a mental illness. They have just they they're not dangerous.
Poverty.
They're not, so they just are poor. And if we had reliable housing that would keep them from not being able to fall through the cracks, they could then you put in like a dry cleaner in the place that was fully subsidized. They could be able to get a job because they don't present these things.
Mhm.
They would just fix. If you fix like 60-70% of the problem, and then you kind of do the assisted living stuff at 30%, it's not an impossible
It's
situation.
not unfixable.
Instead,
It's very fixable.
everything is like, let's put more money in prisons and cops. Like we spend like
Mhm.
what 30 million a day in New York. Let's put more money in cops. Let's bust more heads.
Well, I
Um,
mean, quite frankly, like that's their solution to homelessness. Like their solution to homelessness is more cops to arrest people for the crime of being poor.
yes, and this gentleman's mental illness. Again, I've been obviously rewatching a lot of X Files when I go to the gym lately and at home. It's been in that period of also around Mother's Day. I do it because my late mother was a huge. That's how I started watching the show because I was cool and going out in college at night, and I was home from college when one I home from college one weekend, and my mother's watching this weird show, and she's like, "Oh, you got to see this," and so that's how I started watching the X Files. But um, there's one where the guy who is kidnapping women, harming young girls, and whatever. And Scully reads his stuff. It's like he was institutionalized with bipolar disorder. It's kind of like,
Mhm.
okay, well, that's not
You're not real people.
everyone. No, and this guy was depicted in no way consistent with that. He's just a criminal minds unstuff. He's psychotic, but he's not this. But so much of that, if you think of what we've watched, we've seen,
There's
has
no reason to institutionalize someone with bipolar disorder. Like,
no, well, you would. Well, the idea is that you obviously would institutionalize someone who's that violent and dangerous, but it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily
but,
connect
yeah,
with bipolar
yeah.
disorder. But it presents this idea that, especially when we don't understand, it's like we can understand, like, oh, you stole some money or something. All right, fine.
Mhm.
But we have trouble understanding someone who would do horrible things to children or women and stuff like that. So we think that, oh, they're crazy. They equate
Yeah.
craziness with mental illness, and then that gets you to having no problem seeing someone get murdered on a subway train. And I think that's been one of the more dangerous things of where we've presented mental illness. And I do think um, being able to be upfront about it, as Fetterman was and others, of that mental illness is
Mhm.
not just I'm the crazy person. It's more of just this could have been, and this could have been me. I just have the resources. You actually need to have resources that you don't wind up falling within the cracks.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do if you have no resources, if you have no family or family with resources, it is so easy to wind up. I think to me, it's like you are not fully something is off or you're not fully aware of what's going on of our country.
Mhm.
If you look at that situation and of the two people, identify with the person who willingly put a guy in a chokehold and killed him. I could easily say of how there's no way I'm doing that. Whereas the person who had mental issues or whatever, it's very easy to be like, this could be you. But I think people
Yeah.
don't want that to happen. They want all choices, bad choices. I think I've mentioned to you before, I was talking to someone, their neighbor had their house has been vacated. And I was asking, oh, what happened to your neighbor? And explained that there was some sort of financial crisis. And you could see the lady have to suddenly start, oh, but they were investing in this or they were doing this. Some try to find this the mistake, the thing that that
Mhm.
person did that I did not do.
Yeah.
That's why I still have my life and this person didn't, who I knew and whatever, and everything went to hell for them because no one wants to believe that they're helpless,
Oh yeah.
uh, that their lives could go to hell.
I mean, I'm half Irish, so I was very much raised with the idea that it could. But I mean, obviously I'm not religious, but people do not have the whole like, you know, there's like a non-religious version of "but for the grace of God go I." No one has it. A lot of
Mhm.
people are like, "Oh no, they were bad and were punished." Because I mean, on some level, like this whole country is very much infused with Calvinism, like at its very roots. And part of that is, the elect. Like if you're a rich person, it's because you were good and you're going to heaven and God is rewarding you. And that's, also prosperity theology. There's a whole general idea that, like, well, if you're bad, you will
Mhm.
be punished with, poverty, or you're being tested so that Jesus can see if you're good enough to get into heaven personally, or you will be rewarded with wealth.
Yeah,
And it's a very American idea to very much to attach morality to wealth.
absolutely. But it's very much and it's a because in classist societies outside of the states, so obviously in England, for instance, there was a sense of, I'm going to mangle the term, but the idea of the nobility had a certain obligation because God loved them enough to make them noble. There's that's effed up. But the idea is that, okay, well, I'm the Duke of asshole, but oh well, this poor serf, let me at least give her some money because God obviously doesn't think much of her, as opposed to I'm the Duke of asshole because I worked so hard to get
Yeah.
my dukedom, and this serf is lazy. There's no not even sympathy there, which is actually more dangerous. I mean, neither
Mhm.
is great, but the latter is to me far more toxic. And Americans seem to have such a I call it lottery mentality. So if you think of, you probably know the exact figure, the percentage of Americans who live in just abject, backbreaking poverty versus the percentage of Americans who are very, very well off. So let's say the 1% versus 20% or something,
30% about,
30%.
yeah.
And
30% of the country, I think, makes under 15 an hour.
and so the idea is that, well, if I work hard, everything goes well, I don't get sick or anything or have an accident or whatever, either I or more likely my children or my children's children will be part of the 1%. That's the American dream. And then um but there's no chance that's more achievable. That's more something I want to talk about than being part of the 30%. And it's somewhat effective because obviously, you know, even poor people, I mean, poor people who have voted Republican, um, they view it as like, well, I don't want to be a victim. You are presenting it as in I'm always going to be these are always going to be my
Mhm.
circumstances, but I could wind up wealthy and, you know,
Yeah.
dancing and
Temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Um,
um so that's just sort of that whole subway thing just devastated me because of just the way someone would have to die that way, and it's reflective of issues that are inherent in the income
I mean,
inequality in New York and everything in New York, and our solution to it is just I want these people to go away.
yeah.
It was Elisa Farrow, I think, who said her husband, this guy do something about the subway. My husband won't let me
Mhm.
ride it. It was just like, Jesus Christ. your won't let you. It is always like the it's and her and I'm not I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try to gatekeep masculinity. I'm the hardly the last person to gatekeep masculinity, but it's always some sort of goofy, her husband's
Yeah,
probably the weakest weak guy of the world is going to be like, no
yeah.
way, I won't
My
allow
wife,
you.
I can't have my wife going on the subway.
It's more like I don't want to ride the subway. Oh my god, I'm scared. But like, no, no, honey, it's too dangerous for you. I Yes, it's a little
Mhm.
dark out. Let's get a cab. Not for me, but for you. It's just so ridiculous. And I get it. There are women who are into that and like who say that out loud and feel like they feel protected. They got like
I would feel embarrassed. Like, how do you like my husband? Like to actually say the words "my husband doesn't allow me blank." Like just beginning any sentence that way is embarrassing.
oh, it's just this one thing of like if we're friends, but if you're about to like I'm gonna
Mhm.
go do something that let's say reckless, I see as reckless.
Yeah,
Oh, I would be more of like, oh, please don't do this.
yeah,
One thing that's fine. I'd be like, please don't look. I don't. Here's I. This is a little like don't do X, honey.
yeah.
Is sort of okay. I
Like,
get that,
don't jump out of a plane without a parachute.
like the idea, it just it's so infantilizing. It's like for
Yeah.
like an 8 year old. My 8 year old is kind of like, oh, I'm gonna no, that would be quite dangerous. You can't
Mhm.
do that. But this is a grown person, so like she isn't able
You
to be
can't make her
like,
decision. It's like, no, my husband is protecting me because I am too stupid to know if the subway
I'm
is too dangerous for me to be on it or not.
yes, me, my conservative whiteness, I
Yeah,
would always be riding the subway with those brown people. If not for my, like
yeah,
suddenly, is also the sort of they're the kind of white women I would meet who suddenly, once they had a child, got very racist, but not them, it's just their kids. Like, oh well, this
yeah,
neighborhood. Oh well, I have to send my kids to this private school. I have like it's because
yeah,
of like, but it's not me, it's this. So it's just absurd.
yeah.
Um, I get it. I get the crime, but it's so much of it is not like actual, like in the sense of being afraid of going to, say, a mall in Texas and being
Mhm,
gunned down, all those sort of things. It's literally just I can't bear to see poor people because it's an environment where there's poor people. And I think you and I have both either written about this of where someone will complain about some New York Post, and there's always a New York Post editorial. It's about some rich person being annoyed that they have to see poor
yeah.
people, but from their fancy restaurant to their uh, Broadway show, and it's just horrifying to me, right? Like that's like it's
Well, you know what? This is
uh,
yes, you should see that and be angry, but not at the people. Like,
yes, that would be like, oh my god, like I should not. I guess I should either feel bad about it or guilty or something. And
right.
like, how do I fix this? But instead, it's more of like, how dare there
Hmm.
be poverty around me, even though that is what like no one could have, that what the rent in New York is
Yeah.
3,000 dollars for 2,000 200 square feet.
How is it that there are people here who can't afford rent?
And so, well, yeah, it's just like I'm very upset. Like you live,
Like,
like it's not like they're just doing it to be annoying. They would most likely like to, or you could try to fund, but they have no their literal solution is just like I would just want them locked up or
yeah.
institutionalized. I've heard that stated, like man, just right, but that's who's paying for that, and it's not humane.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not humane, but it's sort of essentially um both home you would want to make homelessness or the it's hard because there's a lot of mental illness that is progressive or at least what could be contained would just fall apart. There are so many,
Mhm.
I've said this, we've met people who because of the grace of their families or the jobs they have, if they were ever pressed in true stressor situations where
Mhm.
oh my god, this my I work paycheck to paycheck. This, if I don't get this in, I'm going to lose my rent. Everything that trickles down, the stress of that,
Mhm.
of where I'm going to get my next meal, the stress of that for average people would break them, and they would wind
Yeah.
up. They can. These are people who sometimes who flip out if something doesn't go right in their
Yeah.
lives. So like for so many of these people, if they living in these situations, is just sort of the cure to mental illness is probably not institutionalizing these people. It is getting them a system of security that
Yeah.
allows them to
And
kind
health
of their
and,
mental health.
the ability to access mental health care. Like, people don't necessarily need to be institutionalized. Part of the reason why, you know, even like pre Reagan's, purging of the institutions, it the number of people in those institutions started to decline, um, like quite radically, because it became possible for people to take care of, you know those people at home with medication and with like other assistance. I was watching something recently about what was the Geraldo place, the good, like back when Geraldo was good, I guess.
Mhm.
And he did the thing of that mental health, like that, sorry, that like mental institution.
Ah,
um and there were all these interviews with these people who had, either had their relatives, or someone, like or they themselves had stayed there. There was a guy there who was like misdiagnosed as, they didn't know what he just had, but it turned out he just had cerebral palsy. There were people with Down syndrome, all that kind of stuff. And like, it is now possible for those people, for people, certain issues, to be at home, but like, we also need support. They don't necessarily have to be in an institution, but they do need support.
oh yeah. Well, this guy is less whatever.
It's just,
And
it doesn't always have to be the
they
most
mentioned,
cool option.
well, as we discussed last week, this is a guy who's like, basically, I don't have a home. I'm hungry. I'm,
Hmm.
and our collective response, I would
Yeah.
say, America's collective response as through this man was to murder him
Hmm.
instead of like, okay, well, let's get you those things. And so whatever people are raising for this defense collectively, what good, think of what could have been done for this one individual, but no
Yeah.
one's going to have that dialogue. They'd rather have, every time you see a homeless person, it's just sort of, I I have money to spare, but just for whoever kills you,
Yeah.
not for I that's a separate account.
Mhm.
That's for your murderer's defense, not for you per se, annoying homeless person. So yeah, that's the so anything else before we wrap up?
I got nothing.
I hope they switched the air conditioning on for you. It sounded like it was
Yeah.
very hot and
No, it's cooling down now, but like, I was running around trying to get ready for this, and like, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to die. I'm going to die of heat exhaustion." And like, on air, it'll be really depressing for everyone. You'll probably have to edit it out though. Like,
that, well,
yeah.
that's then it's a snuff film. All right. So, well, thank you, everyone. I hope you are having a pleasant holiday. I know it's a tough day for a lot of people who do not have moms. I know that feeling well. So, my best to all
Yeah.
of you. And we'll see you next time.